Madam Secretary, would you take roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Seifert.
Here.
Chair Hernandez.
Here.
Thank you.
And now we are going to go to the public comment period. So at this time, for items not on the agenda, each member of the audience may address the commission in any subject within the commission's business. Each member of the audience and each is subject to limited to a discussion of 3 minutes or as otherwise directed by the chairs. So the speakers can be properly identified for the record. Please complete a request to speak form available in the back of the room and hand it to staff once it is filled out. And please state your name and address. Any comment? No? Okay, then I will close the public comment period. We are going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is approved with one motion. These items are read only on request of commission members. Should anyone, including members of the public, wish to discuss or disapprove any item, it must be dropped from the blanket motion and considered as a separate item.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself on the Libertine Brewing, item number 3.
We're on the, we will note that.
Thank you.
But we are on the consent calendar.
Isn't that on there?
Item
That's
number
item
one.
Item 1.
And I do have 2 questions.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're going to pull, there are 2 questions.
And there happens to also be 2 corrections that I want to note on record.
That may be, I just want a
Yeah.
clarification on the actual number because there's 2 different ones mentioned.
Yeah.
And then also the recommendation is different than what's on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
So it seems that there are typos, so if you can let us know
Yes,
what those are,
exactly.
Peter?
So the agenda is correct. The staff report, due to the error of Word documents and copy and paste, actually has the recommendation of a different item. So it references a different project. It should be that the recommendation is to, by motion, approve Plan Development Permit PD 2015-0007, 0027. And so the agenda is correct, but the staff report is incorrect. And there's also an error in one of the conditions of approval that we would want to have corrected. Condition number 4, which is on the top of page 3. The first sentence talks about the southwesterly corner of the project site. It should actually reference the southeasterly. So we would like that amendment made.
Just for clarification, there's 2 references in that paragraph to something southern. One is southernmost and one southwesterly.
Yes.
Which one do you want to amend?
It's the
So,
reference to, it's the second that we want to amend that says the southwesterly corner, because that should be the southeasterly corner.
Okay.
It is accurate that the bus storage is on the southernmost
Right.
part of the site.
Yes.
so can I get a motion with those?
Well, with 1
Is it more?
second.
Yeah.
In the description, it says 35 space parking and 8 space bus, but throughout the rest of the document, it says 34 space parking and 7 space bus. I'd just like to know which one. It's in the discussion.
Yes.
It's also on item number 11 in the conditions.
Yes, so the actual number of bus spaces as shown on the exhibit are 7 in the rear.
Okay.
And then the parking lot does look like it is 34.
34, okay. It was hard to count the exhibit because of the trees
Yes.
and the things, so thank you for the clarification.
So can I get a motion with those?
Hang on, I
changes?
think you have to follow, now that we've removed it from the consent calendar, you've got to follow the procedure set forth for a public hearing, so,
Yes, that's correct. And ask if there's any public input.
right.
Okay. Do we have any public input on item number 1? No? Okay, with that?
No written communications.
Nope. Okay. Would you like to make the motion?
Sure. be happy
I
to.
think then you got to close the hearing.
I'm going to close the public
Right.
hearing.
Yes.
Okay?
And bring it back to us.
And I'm going to bring it back to the commission.
Well, I will make a recommendation that the Planning Commission by motion approve Plan Development Permit PD 2014-0006, noting the updates that have been read into the record.
0027.
Yes, if you could read off the agenda, because the staff report
Oh,
section
sorry.
you wrote was the wrong number.
Okay. Yes, I can. So I will append my, or update my motion, that the Planning Commission by motion approve Plan Development Permit PD 2015-0027 with the updates noted into the record.
Can I get a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, we will move on to item number 2, the Verizon Mono Tree Plan Development Permit at 1611 South Blosser Road.
Yes, and new information has come forward since the publication of the staff report. The applicant is requesting a continuance to May 18th. The intention is that the applicant has come up with an alternative type of design that instead of being a standalone pole, may be integrated into a building in the area, actually on the same site. And there's no formal application for that yet, but the goal is that will be processed, so that application will also come on May 18th, in which time, if it's approved, the applicant would withdraw the request for the mono-eucalyptus. So in a nutshell, we're asking for one more continuance to May 18th.
Thank you.
Can I
ahead.
just address this for, can they clean this up a little bit, Mr. Gilly? You know, the vicinity map shows something on baseline in Solvang. The site map really doesn't give us a good description of where this tower is located on the property. I mean, when they do come back, can we at least get the right set of plans?
We'll make those notes, yes.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and move that we continue item number 2, the Plan Development Permit 2014-006 to the May 18, 2016 Planning Commission hearing.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Abstention? Motion carries. And with that, we will move on to item number 3, and Mr. Seifert has informed us he will be recusing himself.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Good evening. To introduce item number 3, I would like to first quickly describe some of the industrial districts that relate to this project. First, the M1 district, which is light manufacturing, is a district that accommodates light industrial and design research facilities. This district specifically states that the purpose of the district is to not provide services to the general public. On the other hand, the CM district, which is the project that you have before you is the commercial manufacturing district. This provides for light and industrial and limited commercial uses such as wholesale. The CM district does not specifically state in its purpose section that services cannot cater to the general public, but public-oriented uses in both the M1 and CM could still create a conflict with industrial neighbors. Such uses such as the tasting rooms that cater to the general public are clearly in conflict with the intent of these districts. On the other hand, through a conditional use permit, the city, meaning the Planning Commission, has approved tasting rooms in the CM and the M1 zones, and also for beer and wine. Wine is more popular in the last 20 years, but we have done it for beer, and I'll discuss that in a moment. For example, in 2013, the approval of the Santa Maria Brewing Company, which is currently located in the M1 district was approved, and I don't have my pointer. Okay, so you can see the Santa Maria Brewing is to the south. That's actually off of Fairway Drive. Libertine Brewing is to the north. And just wanted to note as part of this presentation that the Planning Commission approved in 2013 a beer manufacturing as well as a tasting room in that location. With that project in mind, conditions were applied to the public-oriented uses, and that was to limit the size, the number of patrons, and other restrictions with the intent to minimize impacts associated with the public-oriented uses. The proposed project before you tonight, which is shown on your screen, is for Libertine Brewing Company. They're located at 2325 A Street, and they intend to store, distribute, and allow limited beer tasting in the CM district. In addition, tours of the brewery, growler refilling, and minor retailing of Libertine merchandise is also proposed. Those are similar activities, almost identical to the Santa Maria Brewing that was approved in 2013. Looking at the floor plan, I just wanted to quickly describe it to you. You'll see the highlighted area in yellow. That's the area that will be for the seating. Tables and chairs, basically each table would accommodate 4 people. Also, to the west, kind of the southwest of that highlighted area would be a small retail area for basically Libertine merchandise. I assume it's going to be hats and cups and things like that. The rest of the area would be for basically the beer manufacturing area. You'll see just to the west on the side of the building, there's 4 fermentation tanks as well, as shown on there. Also, I just wanted to note in the back, the employee parking would be located there. The reason why employee parking would be there, and the city's actually requiring that, is because of the industrial nature of this complex. There's heavy equipment that comes in and out of that alley that you see. So in order to preserve safety for the customers, customer parking will be located on the south end. You'll see it labeled there. That's 7 stalls that they have in the front of the building. If the project did not have a public-oriented use, this project would not be before you tonight. It would not require a conditional use permit. The beer manufacturing use is actually permitted. They could just submit construction drawings and go straight to their business. I wanted to acknowledge, I think it's important, that there have been some impacts identified regarding parking as well as alcohol safety. We've worked closely with the applicant and the neighboring properties. I've personally called many of the neighboring properties to discuss these issues with them. But at the same time, the applicant has worked diligently to put some rules and procedures that they would abide in order to address those potential impacts. We can discuss those a little bit later. Some of the conditions that were put in this project include limiting the hours. There will be after hours, for example, Monday through Friday, it's after 5 and after. Seating will be based on available parking, so no more tables and chairs than the parking that is provided. Also, they will need to have a management plan for both that parking as well as an alcohol safety plan as well, which is attached to the staff report. In addition, conditions were modeled after the Santa Maria Brewing. I showed you that on the screen earlier. Santa Maria Brewing back in 2013 had very similar conditions, so we wanted to make sure that we keep the spirit and keep those conditions alive in this project as well. Although the conditions may be challenging for the applicant, we do believe that if they're carefully abided by and that the conditions they will protect the neighbors, and they also provide a solution. We wanted to be solution oriented to these potential impacts that have been identified. Also, I wanted to recognize that a petition was submitted to the city. I've worked very closely with the gentleman that submitted that petition, and that's attached as well. As well as contacting the neighbors, I also contacted the petitioners, and I wanted to clarify those issues and clarify, what are their main concerns, which I've spoken to many of them. We'd also like to emphasize that the project could be brought back to the commission if there are issues associated with the public-oriented use, especially if it's not properly managed. I think that's very important. This may result in removing that public-oriented use that you have before you. In summary, based on limiting the hours, the seating, and the requirement for management plans, staff believes that the project will not have an impact on the neighboring businesses. Other than that, that does conclude the presentation by staff. We're available to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Now, if I can have the commissioners, do you guys have questions for staff?
I do. I have a couple of questions for staff. What was the original, what originally was proposed for the hours of the tasting portion?
The hours are very similar to what you see in the permit tonight. I think they wanted to start at 4 and they bumped it to 5, which seemed more appropriate so that, businesses have gone home for the day, it frees up parking. When I contacted some of the neighbors, they were like, oh, it's 5 and after. They were actually feeling more comfortable about that. So originally they wanted to open, I believe it was at 4, and I can't remember on the weekend. I think it's always started at 11.
Okay.
Additional questions by other commissioners? Okay. Are we going to have a presentation by the applicant?
Yeah, we have several speakers that want to speak.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Eric Newton. I reside in San Luis Obispo, and I'm representing Libertine Brewing Company.
Can you state your address?
6027 Altamira, San Luis Obispo. First off, I'd like to thank Brian and city staff for their presentation and their assistance with our proposal, up to this meeting. They've helped us tailor our proposal to meet, all the conditions of the city departments and also concerns about our neighbors, while at the same time keeping our desired operational goals for our brewery at this location. Secondly, and more importantly, we're excited to bring Libertine to the Santa Maria area here and ultimately promote the local craft beer industry in this area. I've seen in the past several months a tremendous amount of developments and businesses coming to Santa Maria, and I think that our business our business and such as businesses like Libertine only complement and support the growth of the area here. One thing I do want to stress is that our primary use of this location is storage, packaging, and distribution. We are requesting a secondary function of a small tasting room and retail sales area. I'm sure Planning Commission is aware of the exploding craft beer industry, and it's very common now to see breweries and wineries in industrial parks. Neighboring cities such as Paso Robles, Lompoc, Buellton, Santa Barbara all have success stories with having these type of businesses in industrial parks. Unfortunately, time doesn't allow me to share who we are and what we do and how a tasting room is vital to our business plan. I've asked Tyler Clark, who is the founder of Libertine, during open comment to speak to those items. But rather than concentrating on operations, I wanted to respond to a petition that was started and attached to the staff report here. After researching the petition and talking to several of the people who signed it, I'm a little disturbed on how this petition was handled by the originator. It appears that a lot of false information to our operations and several misconceptions were used to get signatures in this petition. First, our hours of operation were misconstrued. They were portraying us as opening at 10 a.m. on a weekday. I would understand if our operations were during the week. The parking is very challenging there. But the fact is our hours were designed to complement the development and not affect parking in any way. Our actually hours of operation of the tasting room are 5 p.m. weekdays and only on weekends. This creates additional spaces for the development to utilize during the working hours. We have 7 spots right now that we will not be using during the day, which other businesses there can utilize during this time frame. In addition, we provided parking agreements with our adjacent neighbors and created a parking plan to assist with additional parking concerns, and we'll manage that through the process. There's actually pictures that are attached to the petition that you guys see. Those are pictures we're taking during working hours. I have the pictures during Saturdays and Sundays that you guys can look at. As you guys can notice that there's only one car here during the thing, and that's typical of a Saturday and Sunday there. So we would like you guys to take that in consideration, that was misconstrued there. There's also other misconceptions that were cited by the originator, and these included the establishment would bring in increased theft to the area, increased vandalism, physical harm to our employees, and run the risk of employees operating equipment with alcohol impairment. I need to emphasize, this is not a bar. This is a tasting room. We're a high-end craft brewery, and the majority of our patrons are working professionals that appreciate and support the beer industry in a positive way. We don't have any issues like that at our other locations. We have a location in Morro Bay in San Luis, and these have never had any of these issues such as those. And additionally, as a note here, it's quite possible that our patrons will never cross paths with any of the neighboring employees, as our tasting room is open only on off-business hours. I feel the major problem here with the petition is that the people were fed wrong information about our operations. If these signers had the correct information portrayed by the CUP that you guys have in front of you, most likely would not see any signatures on this petition. I had the opportunity to talk to many of the signers and inform them of our truthful operations, and we received more of a positive responses, but most people want us to remain neutral in the area because of, saving faith with a lot of the other businesses in the area. I've got 3 people that they're going to send me emails rescinding their position, but I only received 1 as of today. But I would like the commission to really look at this petition and only listen to people here that at the meeting that actually have the right information with regards to our hours and the parking and all the effort that we put into making our neighbors happy. We have a lot of positive responses that we received on social media. There's a lot of people excited about us coming here, and I believe our project would be a great addition to the Santa Maria area. We ask that the Planning Commission unanimously approve this our proposed tasting room and support the local craft brewing industry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I'll have some questions. Go ahead if you have some.
I just, could you describe where your operations are in your Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo?
We have a pub out in Morro Bay right on the Embarcadero. And then right now we have a tasting room downtown San Luis Obispo. And we're in the process of starting a restaurant at that location.
Okay. And do they keep similar hours?
Actually, we have our hours are from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day there.
Okay, thank you.
The Morro Bay facility, so that is more of a traditional bar / pub. It isn't primarily a storage area, is that right?
Correct.
And the same would be true of the San Luis?
San Luis Obispo is just a tasting room right now. We've been operating for the last 8 months, but our phase 2 is to transfer that tasting room into a restaurant facility there.
So you don't do storage or?
Right now we do storage and we do the brewing in our San Luis Obispo
in the
location.
San Luis. How many square feet do you have for the tasting portion?
There at San Luis Obispo, we have about 1,000 feet right now.
About 1,000 feet. And what type of occupancy do you have there?
We have 50 people occupancy for that area that we have right now.
And is that kind of typical that on the weekends and whatnot you would have kind of a full boat, or?
For the tasting room, downtown San Luis Obispo, yeah, we've been ranging between 20 to 25 people there, but it's on and off, to tell you the truth. Sometimes you walk in there's 5 people. We don't have a food portion yet there. That's on our phase 2, but we're just operating that as a tasting room right now. But we are right downtown San Luis Obispo.
Additional questions?
I do. The photographs that you showed us, when were those taken?
That's on a typical Saturday and Sunday.
Can you tell us when these were taken?
One was taken on a Saturday, probably 2 weeks ago, and the other one about 3 weeks ago. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what the parking situation is during off hours.
And these were weekend photographs?
Weekend on Saturday.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I have one other question.
Commissioner
And that's the facility here Secondarily, it's a tasting room.
That's what we're proposing. The secondary function would be just a tasting room. And I have our founder of Libertine. He'll explain how a tasting room comes in together and everything during open comment.
Sure.
And how it's a vital part of our operation.
But if part of the concerns that the adjoining businesses have are the quantity of people that may show up there, since it's secondary, would you be opposed to further limiting the number of patrons that you could have at any one time there?
Well, obviously, we're open to a lot of different things. We've already taken, usually our parking was at first factored on for a restaurant, and that's how it was. But then we further restricted it based on about tables and the people per table. So we've already went from what we're supposed to be, viewed as parking to an extreme measure to this point right here. And I feel that we have way more parking spaces than what we'll ever be using there, just because of where we're at out on the outskirts of town.
So I'm not sure that part of the concern isn't that it's going to make that slide from tasting room with the small number of people to a bar. I mean, that, all of a sudden, if you start pushing that envelope to 35 or 50 patrons at any one time, well, it's hard not to say that's a bar.
Yeah, correct.
And so for us, are we approving a bar, or are we approving a tasting room? And if it's a secondary thing, then if it's secondary to just go ahead and have it as a tasting room, then for us, it would be a lot easier if we could constrain the number of people. That would give you your secondary thing at a smaller level, and it would give us and the people that are opposed to it that sense that it isn't going to be a bar.
Correct. And I think Brian has constrained us to the amount of people per amount of parking spots, and I think that's 30 people. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, but it's keyed on how many people you can get within the facility to sign off. So instead of being a flat number, what you're doing is doing 2 per parking space. So if you can get, as you have, instead of you have 7 initially, that's 14, then you have another 8, that's another 16, that brings up to 30. If you can get another 10 parking spaces, all of a sudden, we're up to 50. I mean,
I see your point now.
Yes,
we would be acceptable to keeping it to those parking spots.
Or to just a flat number.
Understood. Okay, I get what you're saying now. Yes, we'd be acceptable to that.
Okay, all right.
Any questions?
That's it.
Additional questions, Commissioner Pratt? No? I do have some questions. I understand that they do have business hours, most businesses there, from 8 to 5. Do they have any business hours on a Saturday that you're
We've
aware
been
of?
monitoring the parking there on the weekends, and to tell you the truth, if there's 1 or 2 cars there, I'm surprised. But we've been there for 2 months now, and every Saturday I've been there, I take a look out front, and it's abandoned.
Okay. And the other issue is the unsigned agreements that you have with the other owners there. Are you going to have those signed, or are they still in the negotiation phase?
No, I already got agreements with them. We were waiting on city's approval of our parking agreements, and then we were going to get those signed. I wasn't going to do it twice, so as soon as the city approves those, we'll get those signed. And we understand that's part of our condition. If we don't have them signed, we don't get the spaces.
And another issue was term of the parking. Was that included in the agreements?
Correct. Our agreement was based upon another agreement the city has approved. I know the city was looking at it to make sure that they were okay with how it was worded for ours. But our term is, we understand if we lose that somehow, we're going to have to either get another one or we're going to lose occupancies there.
I understand, but it would be good for us to know that you will have parking for a year or two, just a term that you are secured parking, because it seems that this way, whoever you are able to get parking from may turn around a week from now and say you no longer have that parking.
Correct. You can make that a part of the condition. We can have it for a year or 2 years, whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
Okay. Additional questions? Okay, we're going to move on to written communication and public comment. So I'm going to start with James Sims. You can please state your name and address.
We have written communications. So for the record, this letter from Stevens and Stevens, that should be part of the record, seems
Right.
to me.
Right.
Correct?
We do have actually 3 written communications, and one is from Mr. Jim Sims, and he is here today. Another one is from McKibben Enterprises, Mike McKibben, and one from Richard Gabe Meyer, president of Meyer Asset Management, Inc. Please go ahead.
Okay, good evening.
Can I
My
just
name is-
ask, excuse me one second, is that part of the, attached to the petition?
No, we just received this.
Yeah, those are new. We just received the one from Richard Meyer. It's a second one. There's one attached to staff report, and then we got another one at like 4:30. And then McKibben, that was an email. That's new. We just passed out the same ones that were mentioned just a moment
I
ago.
didn't see those. If I could look at a,
You didn't get a copy?
Here
I
you go.
did not. No.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is James Sims, and I'm the owner and operator of the property of Sims Machinery International as a business, and the property is owned by West State Properties, LLC. We've been in Santa Maria for 28 years. For the first 20 years, it was on Prisker Lane, and for the last 8 years, I'll come out on 9 years, we bought the building right across from the folks that are the winery, proposing the winery. And we've been there, like I said, almost 9 years. Another year, I'll be able to pay off probably a part of my loan. And so we've been here forever. We're a very small company. We're a high-tech company. We build a product called turbo expanders and centrifugal compressors for the LPG and LNG business. Our business is international. Our customers are in Spain, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Japan, Singapore, pretty much all over the world. We have people that go out and service equipment. We're odd as much as we're not 8 to 5. We can be 24/7. In fact, I hope we become 24/7 because right now we have 9 young people working for us. Actually, I'm not young. So including me, we have 9 people, and half of those are Cal Poly graduates, mechanical engineers. I have a young lady tonight who's going to speak, and she's my chief engineer, Paula. And so our goal is to bring a high-tech company to Santa Maria, and keep a high-tech company in Santa Maria, I guess I should say, because we're already here. Honestly, we're very concerned about the brewing company. We welcome as neighbors, no problem. We want to be good neighbors. The beer tasting, to me, it can cut it any way. It's beer tasting. It's what it is, whether it's high-end, highbrow, or whatever. It's also, some people are just telling me, well, it's high-end. Okay, fine. But it's not your typical Budweiser, great. But it's about twice the alcohol content. So they have the two sides of the thing. Maybe highbrow, but you can still alcohol consumption. Our goal is to keep adding employees. Right now, we are working a typical shift, but I'd say as far as 9 to 4 is 7 to 4 is our typical, but we're typically there from 7 to 5 to 6, and we can come in at night if we have to, because we send people across the world to work on equipment, or we have customers we need to communicate with maybe 8, 9, or 10 o'clock at night. And for people to come in at that time and have to find a parking spot and have to deal with whatever's outside that bar, sorry to use that word, we have to deal with it. We have to deal with whatever's coming, and we have no choice. Once it gets there, basically my options are to tell people, you just have to get out.
Time's up.
Sorry, I'm way out of time.
Thank you.
I've just started, so can I get more time?
I'm sorry, no. Those are the rules. Thank you so much. Next speaker. Paula Quijon, if you can state your name and address.
My name is Paula Gijon. I live at 403 East Mariposa. And, excuse me, I've been a resident of Santa Maria for more than 20 years. And as Mr. Sims said, I am a Cal Poly graduate and was fortunate to get a job here in Santa Maria in engineering. And so I'm really concerned about what the issue of the beer, the tasting room is going to bring to our work. As Mr. Sims said, we are an international company, and for the past year, because of gas price and all that, business has been slow for us, and it's starting to pick up. And when we do have business, you know, we've had to build a machine in a weekend, and so we've had to work weekends from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. So there has been those times where we had to work off hours, and it's all of us. We use our full parking, and you know, it is a concern to know that there may be other activity going on with the beer or what it may be. And we are an industrial business, so we test machines, we run machinery in our business, and that can maybe disrupt, you know, whatever else is going on outside, and so that's definitely a concern for us. And again, the pictures that you saw where there was nobody there, we have been a little slow, and we have not needed to work on weekends, but we have in the past worked weekends and stayed up very late. And I'm concerned about this coming because it is affecting, you know, where I work. It's affected my boss, and I really wouldn't want to see the company being relocated because I don't want to move from Santa Maria. I don't want to have to find a job. And you know, a lot of the other engineering companies have been laying off people because business is low right now. And Mafi Trench, the Zodiac, they've been laying off people. And so if I had to find a job right now because, you know, my boss is not liking the situation, it would be really hard. So I hope that you take this into consideration. We hope that we do work on off hours to try and get more work in, and that we stay in business. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Third speaker is Jen E. Hansen. If you can state your address.
Good evening. My name is Jens Hansen. I live at 512 Sheridan Road in Arroyo Grande. It's up on the western edge of the Napomo Mesa. I've lived in this area since 1981. I came up here at that time. I was one of the several individuals that moved the Mafi Trench Corporation up from Westlake Village to their present location on Industrial Parkway. I retired from that company in 1987 as their vice president of sales and service. I was very much familiar, I am very much familiar with the turbo machinery business that Mr. Sims operates. I am currently one of his subcontractors. I do visit his facility quite often. I also many times bring some fairly expensive equipment with me, some of which is actually federally controlled equipment. What I'd be concerned about personally is, from my perspective, of coming in late at night, for example, for my own personal safety, if someone is either inebriated or perhaps not inebriated, for the safety of my equipment. I have a little bit of a law enforcement background. I've been a tenant of the Santa Maria Public Airport District since 1984. I'm a pilot. I own an aircraft that's hangared there. I am the captain, and I have been since the year 2000, of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Aero Squadron. I'm a non-sworn officer. I'm an auxiliary member, although if you saw me in uniform, it'd be hard to distinguish me from a real-life deputy. My wife is also a retired police sergeant from Guadalupe, so I've had very close affiliation with law enforcement for quite a while. One thing I'm concerned about is, again, perhaps any issues with regard to the police department and their ability to respond. Even though they have signed off on this petition and they are not that far away with the new location of their office, if there is any form of an incident, it would drag them away from their existing beat duties. And I would hate to have to overburden the police department with extra duties. I would hope that the folks that would frequent this establishment would be law-abiding people, but you never know what alcohol is liable to do to someone. One of the other issues that I was concerned about also, although I don't know if they travel the street on the after hours, but the VTC folks right down the street, and very frequently you see them walking down the street, large groups of them chaperoned by some of their managers, and I'd be concerned about their safety, crossing driveways and things like that. If someone has come out of a facility like that with increased potential for traffic. One quick comment I'd like to make too, as an owner of 3 businesses, I don't understand how in the world you can possibly say that we're going to limit the clientele coming into a business. You're saying that there's going to be 7 tables, but
Sir.
who's to say how many people actually come in through that door?
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Okay, we have Tyler Clark. If you can state your address.
Hi, Tyler Clark, 360 Gallardi, Rio Grande, California. I'm the founder and currently head of brewing operations at Libertine Brewing Company. We opened 4 years ago, it's my wife and I, with a dream to make cool beer and showcase the Central Coast. We were born and raised here in the San Ynez Valley, and we lived in San Diego, saw the craft beer scene there, and as well as Santa Cruz, and worked here in the craft beer industry as well for a local distributor. In the 4 years from opening, we've never had one police officer to our pub, which actually is a pub where people sit down and have pints and do those things. In 4 years, we've never had to call the police. We've never had any noise complaints. We've never had anything. Our tasting room in San Luis Obispo for the last 8 months has been issue-free. It's very similar, pretty much exactly the same to what we want to do here in Santa Maria, and that's much closer to the downtown, college kids, all that. We price accordingly and don't allow that to happen in our place. So it's a very much more like a winery tasting room where you go and you taste and then you buy some bottles and leave. So that's our format there. That's will be our format here. Our whole brewing schedule is we use ingredients locally sourced, and specifically a lot of them come from the Santa Maria Valley here, so raspberries, blueberries, different things like that. And then they age in oak barrels that we get from different wineries and local distilleries. So pretty much exclusively using that, plus wild yeast strains that we find out in our local environment. So we're actually capturing that and then showcasing the flavors of Santa Barbara and San Luis County in that. So it's very important for us to have the tasting room, not only because that's how small breweries like us survived, is by selling directly to a customer a bottle of beer. We usually get much less, obviously the markdown to sell to a distributor. We are an international company as well. We're distributed in the Netherlands, Sweden, England. Actually just signed a contract with Shelton Brothers, which is the largest craft importer and exporter in the United States yesterday. So we're pretty excited to be working with them. And the whole issue, or our whole, like I said, once again, plan is we showcase our environment here, and we're really excited about coming here, and most of our fruit is sourced from here, so it makes sense to be here and manufacture here and do all that process, and then be able to have someone come in and, you can actually see fields of, produce and stuff from our street there. So where we back up, it's not up anymore, but up the field. So I think it's awesome to be right there in the center of everything and then have that as a place to go. So I would just stress again that this isn't a bar. We don't serve pints of beer. We don't even have a pint. That's not even something that we have in our tasting room. And it's, my 4-year-old daughter comes to work with me most days when she's on preschool. So she's made her own beers there. It's much more family oriented than it would be a bar. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sir, a quick question for you. What's the address of of your facility in San Luis?
It's 1234 Broad Street, corner of Broad and Pacific.
Sorry, yes.
Yep.
Okay. The next speaker is Cody George. You can state your address.
My name is, my name is Cody George. I live on 1461 Newport in Arroyo Grande. I work for a company in San Luis Obispo. It's called H2O Engineering. So we're a local water treatment supplier. We work nationally and we work we work worldwide. So very similar to this group over here. we really rely on working with local businesses. So we support water treatment for wineries, breweries, high-end production, the pharmaceutical industry. We've had the pleasure of working with Tyler. I'm actually a vendor of his. We've had a great experience working with Tyler. I'd just like to highlight the fact that a big part of what Tyler's trying to do is really highlight the local community. So as he said, he's from the area. He uses products that are sourced from the area. The yeast strains that he relies on to bring out the natural flavor is from the area. So I think you'll find that as a tenant, he's going to be very proud about being in Santa Maria, and I hope you'll support his project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Shannon Larrabee.
Hi, my name is Shannon Larrabee, and I live at 1325 Garden Street in San Luis Obispo, half a block away from the Libertine San Luis Obispo Brewery and Tasting Room at 1234 Broad Street. I'm also the owner of Central Coast Distributing, a domestic import and craft beer distributor for San Luis and Santa Barbara County for over 55 years. We're located at 815 South Blosser Road in Santa Maria. In addition, I'm a Cultural Heritage Commissioner for the City of San Luis Obispo, which is an arm of the Planning Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak, as I believe I can provide some unique insight and education into the type of business the Libertine will be at 2325 A Street. First of all, my home is located half a block from the Libertine on one of the most expensive streets in San Luis Obispo, Garden Street, where the average price is currently over $600 per square foot. We completed the construction of our home in August 2014. The Libertine opened in August 2015. None of our neighbors opposed the opening of the tasting room and brewery and believed it would be a nice addition to our community. If anyone was going to be upset, it would be us and our uppity neighbors. I'm happy to say that we've had no problems with the Libertine. We cannot hear their customers on even their busiest days. We frequently go to the Libertine and bring guests to sample their beers. Their business is well run. I was there Friday night. The tasting room had about 20 customers tasting through beers, listening to records, and noise could not be heard outside. We witnessed staff refuse service to a customer who didn't have their ID on them, and no one was intoxicated or out of control. As owner of Central Coast Distributing, we've been one of the leading distributors of craft beers in the United States, representing over 50 craft brands. My husband and I have visited hundreds of breweries and tasting rooms all over the world. The type of beers the Libertine brews, mainly sours and wild ales, are extremely unique, hard to brew, and in high demand for the biggest beer geeks. These customers will travel across the country to try these beers and are their high-end customers. I'd like to show you an example of what you get at the Libertine. A taster. This is a taster, is $3. A growler, it's called a growler. This is $35 and $15 to fill. So this is $50. This is a growler that you take home. This is $10, $15 to fill, so $25. Okay, so this is what you get. I've never seen anyone drunk or belligerent at the Libertine, or frankly, many of the tasting rooms we've visited around the world. Most of the most well-known craft breweries, including Stone, Sierra Nevada, Firestone, and Lagunitas, all started out or currently reside in similar industrial areas. If you visit these breweries in San Diego, San Leandro, or Petaluma, you will see that the neighborhoods around them have all improved and attracted high-end businesses over the years. The Arts District in LA, which was formerly Skid Row, is now a high-end area because of the craft breweries that located in the area and the businesses that eventually followed. A tasting room is essential to the operations of this type of business.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Brant Myers. You can give it to our staff, your speaker slip.
My name is Brant Myers, 1220 Ocean Air Drive, San Luis Obispo. I come here as a 10-year veteran of the craft beer industry, as well as a business owner with 3 businesses, 10 employees, and we do beer tours throughout SLO and Santa Barbara County. I wanted to actually talk about the economic impact, but it's pretty obvious if we've seen the trends going on We take people from Paso Robles to Buellton, and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars. We just recently got our 10,000th customer in 3 years. So great economic impact for the city and the county in general. Although we do not plan on bringing groups by the Libertine Brewing tasting room, I wanted to state that it is a great boon, and it is also, as Shannon just said, it is a draw to the area. But it sounds like the people that are opposing this program are more interested in safety, so I'd like to address that. Again, 10,000 people. We do visit solely tasting rooms in breweries. We have never had one incidence of violence. We have never had one incident of over-intoxication. People, for the most part, are trying to come in, taste, sample, really kind of get a tourism aspect of the area, buy some bottles and leave. And I believe that's what the Libertine is really trying to do. We do visit their tasting room in downtown San Luis Obispo. Again, very small, and as Shannon pointed out, these are small tasters of very low alcohol beer. They're also sour, highly acidic, very hard to drink in large quantities. People really do not get drunk off this. They don't get drunk in general when they're tasting, especially at this low ABV. So I feel that safety is not really much of a concern here, especially in such a nice industrial area. You know, I have employees that are after hours as well. A lot of my drivers are also female, also Cal Poly graduates, and they park in an industrial area at 10 o'clock at night, clean the vehicle by themselves, and have never voiced any concern. You know, the craft beer industry and the patrons are very community-oriented, very organized, and very proud of what they do. And we're seeing a renaissance here. This isn't drinking, this isn't a pub, this isn't a bar. These are people tasting, enjoying themselves, and getting a bottle maybe to come back and bring back and share with their friends in the privacy of their own home. So I hope you understand this, and I hope you appreciate that we're really just trying to bring some more business here and kind of grow a really fun industry. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kristen Ramona. Gonna pass? Okay. Rodessa Newton.
Hello, I'm Rodessa Newton. I live at 6027 Altamira in San Luis Obispo. I didn't really prepare anything, but I just thought I'd touch on some points here. I'm also a local and graduated from Cal Poly. I'm one of the owners of the building and also of the brewery. And it's definitely a family-run business. I also have 3 young children. And I can understand sometimes people's misconception, but if you really understood or if you came down to see, for example, our San Luis location, if someone wants to go to a bar, they're definitely going to go to a bar. But if someone's going to come to our tasting room to taste a beer and then purchase that bottle to take home, just like you would purchase a bottle of wine to enjoy later with friends. Let's see, I was just recently recruited for the Downtown Association Board because they really respect our company and what our philosophy is, and we're supporting local farmers and businesses. And so they wanted someone in that aspect on the board, and obviously our business is doing well in San Luis, and it's just kind of small and quaint, and people pretty much just kind of take and go, and sometimes people sit and have a couple tastes, but they're sour beers. I can't drink more than one. But yeah, we're going to bring jobs to, here to the building, and also tax dollars, and I wouldn't find it hard to believe that our neighbors will eventually be patrons once they understand the whole concept of what we do.
Ma'am, can I ask you just a quick question? Are you guys going to be selling any other beer other than the ones you manufacture?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're just small batches. They're Tyler's amazing. He just does these specialty homemade recipe beers that are just very limited. And we don't have college kids come to Libertine. It's young professionals. It's people after work stopping by to have a taste or pick something up on the way home. So yeah, it's, if you're a college student, you're not going to spend $25 on a bottle of beer.
Could you, it's either Ms. Larrabee or yourself. Could you Could you go over the 3 price points again on the sizes and whatnot?
Okay. So if you go into the Libertine, you got a couple options. Most people go in and they want to taste. Tyler's considered like a rock star in the brewing industry. And his place is a destination place where people come from all over the country to try his beers.
And what's that one called right there?
So this is a taster.
How much
Okay.
is that?
So this is typically, most people go in, they want to taste through, he usually has I have a list of beers right here. He usually has like 7 to 10 different things on, and most people want to do tasters. These are $3. Okay, so imagine, this is $3. So we're
Okay.
not getting Cal Poly college kids coming in here downing beers. These are $3. Most people in there are tasting. They taste through a couple of these, they figure out what they want, and then they buy either one of their bottled beers to take home, or they do a growler. So this is a growler. These are $10 and $15 to fill, and you take it home. Okay. This is also a growler. These are $35 and $15 to fill. So most people are walking out with either paying $50 or $25, or they go through a couple tasters and are spending anywhere from $6 to $15 going through a couple tasters.
Thank you very much.
I do have a question that you may also be able to answer. On average, how long do people stay there when they do arrive?
We go there all the time because it's right by our house. Most people go there, and I think they're there, but you can ask Tyler and them. Our experience has been people are there 20, 30 minutes, and they like to nerd out about the beers. And tasting rooms, again, we've been to tasting rooms all over the world. These tasting rooms that do these sour and very nerdy beers, the people want to come, they want to geek out and talk about the yeast strains and the barrels, and they want to meet the brewers and the brewery staff and nerd out about it. The people who enjoy these beers are the biggest nerds in the beer industry. They're engineers, they're nerds, and they aren't drinking volume. They like to talk about it, but they're 20, 30 minutes.
20, 30.
They get something to go, and they go. So
Okay.
you don't see people hanging out there very long.
Thank you.
So, speakers? I have a question for one of the
Is that all? Yes, that's all the speakers.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Sims? Sir, if you want to come up to the podium. I have a couple questions. The first is, if this commission, over the course of time, had decided to pepper that area with wine tasting places, would you have the same objections, or is it the difference between a wine drinker and a beer drinker?
Basically, and I didn't get to say a lot, it's my fault, it's too long. Could I answer one other question? There was a question, it was very important, that first brought up by Mr. Newton, about, somebody asked about the hours. The first time I talked to Mr. Newton, perhaps to remember, is when I called and asked if we could use our parking spot. And I was told they're only going to be open on the weekends. And I said, no, thank you, because we may have to work on the weekend. So just being very clear, that's really what started the hours. The hours have changed many times.
Yes,
by the way.
sir, let's not go for a back and forth. Both of you in good faith.
Just a clarification.
That's fine.
That's
So,
okay.
could
So
you-
to answer your question, my basic issue is it does not match the zoning. Because the zoning that the planners put in their paper, you'll see it on Mr. Myers, he actually has a zoning regulation specifically for this development. He was a developer. He sent me that, and I attached it to my petition, which is in the back end of mine. And that shows there's Exhibit A that shows a zoning that has number 11, says it specifically does not allow anything that draws the general public. And that's different.
So to get back to my question,
Yes.
so in essence, you would object to
I would object.
wine tasting as well?
Yes, sir, because it does not match the zoning. I bought the building because of the zoning. We moved out of Presker Lane area. We were there 20 years renting. It's a mixed business. It was not good for our business. So finally got the money to be able to buy a building. And when we built this building, we were able to move in and have a zoning that matched what we do. And we were expecting that the zoning would stay as what we bought. That's a reasonable expectation, we think, as business owners. If we can't have that, we cannot make business decisions.
Okay.
That's really my crux of my point.
So,
The other incidental.
so a compromise where we suggest that the applicant have fewer patrons at any one time, that really doesn't satisfy your core belief, which is that it shouldn't be there at all.
Well, I'll back up. One question, the other thing is I've heard many issues from the planning department. They've told me certain things, they seem to change. The number of people seem to change. The number of parking spots, number of people per car seems to change. So honestly, I haven't seen it in writing in this as exactly what it is. Maybe it was there. There's a lot of it in paper. I've got thick files. I don't trust that whatever happens tonight is going to continue, nor if we say, okay, no problem, limited number, and let's do it for 6 months, just give it a ride. We have no recourse other than spend all the time come back and dealing with it, trying to fight this fight, which I've spent probably 3 weeks on, getting this petition together. And this petition was not disingenuous in its telling people. I'm telling people what may happen when these kind of events happen. They can happen with alcohol consumption. Anybody who's thinking can realize that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Simba, I do have a question. Being that we are getting more into the age of where you have mixed use, if we are able to have the conditions that are pinned down and you can trust that they will remain, as an example, 30 people is the maximum that they can have, and the planning department can work through all these conditions, would that make you more comfortable with the idea?
Actually, I think if you look on, the quick answer is no, ma'am. If you look on Mr. Myers and other people I've talked to, 30 people, occupancy 30 people, that's a bar. You're talking 7 people, maybe 10 people at a time? Okay. I mean, that's more rational.
Okay, so you are saying that there is a number that you are more comfortable with?
No, probably if this goes through, again, my base is I have my business owner and I have to do my business. I have to protect my employees. I understand it's a great place, it's mixed, it's great, but sometimes it seems like what happens is it gets to be one put in, like the one at Santa Maria Brewing, and it used as a stepping stone to bring another one in. How can I, as a business owner, anybody, really feel confident what we're reading for the regulations are going to be there for any length of time until someone says, hey, it's the trend is we should get this in, and we'll just put it in here, and if people aren't awake and don't step up and say, hey guys, this is not fair, it's not right, we're business people, we have to have black and white rules. We follow them, and we're just asking you folks to follow them. I am. Now my petitioners, many of them feel the same way. One person backed out, but the rest of the people, to my knowledge, I'm not speaking absolutely for everything, but in general, they do not want, it does not belong there.
Okay.
And therefore, that's why we're petitioning.
Thank you.
And we ask you not to put it there.
Thank you. That's all the questions we have, unless you have additional questions? No? Okay. We've acknowledged the written communication. Any closing statement from the applicant?
Really quick, when it comes to being neighbors or something like that, you know, I can only say that, hey, we're great neighbors. We've worked on the parking. The reason why it's changed a little bit throughout the process is that we've worked with city staff to come up with an agreement where it meets all departments, it meets every neighbor's concern that we have there. I think we're adding to the development there. The parking during the day, we're contributing to this development. And with alcohol safety, we come up with a plan. We heard Tyler, we heard her, and we're very concerned about this. We take care of our people. You know, I know Mr. Sims had a little bit of concern about having alcohol in that community right there. We have machinery, we have employees too that have alcohol around them all the time. We manage through the process and we do a good job so nobody gets hurt or anything like that. So just keep that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any comments?
I have a quick question from staff. I'm not sure.
Sure.
Quick question from staff. Obviously, the people who are opposed to it, they're saying that this type of business, if you open it up to the public, should not be there at all. They bought a building, they had expectations, et cetera, et cetera. What's staff's take on that?
That is why we opened up with some background on zoning districts and other cases. Of the two zoning districts, the M1 has the clear statement that it's not supposed to have uses that are catering to the public, and the city has approved at least a half dozen wine tasting in M1. CM lacks that language in the purpose statement. They do have other language elsewhere that says certain uses shouldn't be there, but there's, based on past projects that have been done elsewhere, there's the justification to allow this if the Planning Commission believes it's not going to cause an impact on the surrounding area.
Does it become a sort of a slippery slope as it did for the M1? I mean, if we open it up to commercial, then this is the first of X number.
It very well can be, but because these are conditional uses, one of the factors that the commission can choose to look at for these type of uses is whether there starts to be an intensification or a clustering of too many of these in one area. They're conditional uses. You get to see each one of them. It's case by case for each one. There could be cases where if this is approved and a second is proposed in the area, that the commission could find, well, that's maybe too many in one particular area. That's if you can tie that to your view of whether it's going to cause impacts. There's a lot of options out there. I mean, once again, if you believe this is going to cause adverse impacts, then this is why there is a process where you can say no.
And I know for this commissioner, it becomes a little bit problematic because, you know, you allow the camel's nose in the tent and all of a sudden the whole camel's in with a bunch of other people. And, you know, it's tough to say no to the next grouping of people when you've said yes to the previous. And not just how many people are impacting the area, but any number of them. The second person, the third, how many do we then say if there aren't rules initially or we haven't followed the rules initially?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a fair statement, and that's true for a variety of conditional uses, particularly ones that may have issues with parking, because you can't put half dozen uses that have weird issues on parking in the same area, whether they're the same exact use or different. You have to have some areas that have the standard parking that won't need the overlap. But it's really the same issue for churches, all conditional uses. I think the unique thing in this case is there's alcohol, and if managed properly, this may be no issue, but if managed improperly, it could be. And so that's the big question.
Could I just eliminate some of my issues here just by asking, under the building division, on the conditions, it references the outdoor patio, but in the staff report, the patio's gone. Can you confirm that the patio's gone?
Yes, the applicants removed that as part of the request. The original proposal did have an outdoor patio, and based on input from other property owners in the area, it was removed. So that condition should be struck if the commission chooses to approve this.
Okay.
Which one is it? 22. Yes, so that's condition 22. Yes, so 21 and 22 should come off.
Okay. Thank you. And then I'm not exactly sure where my question lies in this, but could you give us a little more information on what kind of special event we would be talking about?
The special event, the permit as proposed does not allow that one. They would have to file for a temporary use permit, so and it'll be looked at case by case. And as part of it, we would normally a temporary use permit is not something that we do any type of notice, but in this case we would because we know there's interest and concern. So admittedly, we would not be comfortable approving a temporary use for a special event until the operation has been there for a good number of months or even maybe a full year to make sure under normal circumstances they're able to manage everything. But a special event could be a weekend, a private party wants to have a party at the location that's invitation only and such. Those are the kinds of things that have happened at other locations and wine tasting places in the area.
Okay.
We would not support unless there was full support of the neighboring business. We wouldn't support something that's just advertised open to, everyone. It would need to be something that we could have certainty that could be managed without upsetting the local businesses.
And would it be our practice, and perhaps there's exceptions to everything, but would it be our practice if you did receive an application for that type of permit to look at the overall square footage of the building itself, or would it be our practice to look at the 750 square feet?
I think we talked to the applicant to find out what the parameters they're looking for, but I believe the part that's going to be intended for the people to hang out in would be the 700 square feet. I mean, they may have tours that could go through the area, but I don't think the applicant would want people who aren't employees just hanging out in the back area.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have right now.
Okay.
I have a question. Could we condition that condition number 9 to require notice to the property owners should a temporary use permit process application be made?
Yes.
So we could include that as one of as modifying that condition?
Yes.
Notice to the property owners? Okay.
Additional comments?
No.
You do?
When Commissioner Pratt was asking about some of her questions, it came up that the outdoor area is no longer being part of this. I just want to clarify from the report standpoint, that was a byproduct of either the property owner or the property management company kind of using a loophole to say that they could not move vegetation, which kept them from having the outdoor thing. So was there a sense that enough of the property owners or adjacent businesses were irritated enough that either the property owner or the management company were trying to limit things as best they could?
I believe that's a fair statement. What was reported to staff is that there are CC&Rs that give the overall association the ability to, the authority to approve exterior changes. And there was concern staff had concern as well when there was the outdoor patio, because our hope was that the outdoor patio would just be something that the patrons shared, not that the interior would draw however many people and then the exterior would draw the same amount, because then that could have been a lot of people. So we're actually we're more comfortable now also because the outdoor patio is not involved. And if there was ever a proposal to bring it back in, that would be an amendment that would have to go through the process.
For me, for this commissioner, I think I have to say I'm very torn on this one. I do certainly see the brewing company's stance on the thing, that I don't think that it's necessary, the tasting room is going to necessarily be their primary, but I think it's probably a little bit more important than just being a throwaway secondary idea. So I can see where they would want that, but I also see the property owner across the street saying, hey, I bought this piece of property and I don't, under certain expectations, and I would prefer that the rules were not changed. So we can either go all one way or all another, or a happy medium. For this commissioner, what would make me more comfortable is, especially since this is kind of the first time that we've had a beer tasting room in a CM area, I would rather see that limited to 15 customers, 20 maximum, for over the course of the next year, and we kind of just see how it is, and then after a year, if the brewers want to come back and ask for an increase in that, then they could at that time. And if we did it that way, I would rather have a flat number than have the conditional use on number 3, which is tied into parking. I would just rather have, you can have this many people as the maximum, let's see how it goes, see if they're good neighbors to the folks across the way, and if they are in the course of the year, then everyone can talk about whether this increases or not. But since we will take the brewers at their face value, Libertine at their face value of what they've said, it's a secondary portion of their business, not the primary, and so I think putting a restriction on it for the next year would make me more comfortable.
Additional comments before I go?
Let me just ask a couple more questions and then I'll offer some comments. The parking management plan that's been submitted by Libertine, they're number 4 and number 5. Are these mechanisms allowed by the CC&R?
Number 5 is internal. It would be a parking plan poster inside, but the stenciling at this point we don't know, and so the idea is both the parking management plan and alcohol safety plan that's in the report is a draft. Staff views them as a draft, so we would have to figure out if the HOA would allow the stenciling, or would it have to be a sign, or what other type of mechanism that would have to be done in order to make sure the customers knew which spaces that they could actually park in and which they should not.
And so staff needs more time to work through that.
Well, if this is approved, then we would have the applicant coordinate with the association as to how they would want to handle it best.
Well, I think that it has to be just clear of where the parking is related to this entity. So I have a little bit of discomfort there because number 4 is really the outside identification, and I don't see anything else. While people can go inside and then change their parking, preferably they would know that on arrival. So I'll add that comment. Okay. And then Commissioner Dickerson hits on something that I think is important, and actually spoke to staff earlier today about this, and that is the language in conditions of approval in 3 that essentially, as Libertine is or isn't able to establish agreements for parking, they can increase their occupancy without us really establishing a ceiling or a place to come back and see how this is going. And so that's problematic for me on that. Okay, I think with that, I want to say this, with the utmost respect to the business that's been here, provided jobs, and for an exciting new opportunity. I'm so glad you're both in Santa Maria. We need to find a way to keep you guys. But I think we have to rely on our zoning. And the tasting part for me tonight, perhaps we could get some of these details ironed out. But for me, I'm leaning on the zoning at this point.
Okay. The comment I'd like to make is that the city staff has worked really hard to make this use fit in this area. And the reason I think being is that it's not intended for that use. there was, reasonable expectation by the people who purchased in that area, so therefore we have a zoning issue. Now we're infringing on the business that is trying to come into this area with limited hours, limited amount of patrons. Now we need parking management agreement. Now you've taken away their outdoor patio. And all of this just continues to change because the intent of this location really isn't meant for, beer tasting. And so we continue to add conditions, and at the end of the day, we are swallowing up the purpose of the business, where instead of thriving, we're limiting where it can go. And so I think that is something the business seems to be okay with, but at the same time, we are also affecting the other people and businesses in that area. So it is a difficult call to make, but it's just that all of these issues don't really have a set or limits in the area that we can all just be able to coexist. Any comments?
Yeah,
Commissioner Andrade?
I've got a few comments. I understand how folks are torn between these two competing businesses. At least they're going to be interfering with each other to some extent. And I'm concerned that really there's some issues regarding these two neighbors that I think things been done differently, those issues might not exist. I think that staff has done an excellent job to try to allow them here in limited scope. I think that if we strike from the provisions 21 and 22, so we make sure there's no outside seating or area. And I think that if we consider notice to the property owners as a requirement of this condition, of these conditions, and consider also perhaps a number like the number that I was thinking of, because I share the concerns of my fellow commissioners that item number 3 really is kind of a number that's going to be moving, kind of like a moving target. And so I would be more comfortable with a number like 25 as a capacity limitation for beer tasters at any one time. And with those modifications, I would be willing to make the motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Mr. Andrade, or Commissioner Andrade, would you be willing to go 20 on that number instead of 25?
I think they've got 7 parking spaces. If you have like 3 or 4 people in a car, I think 25 is, I was thinking 30 before, but 30 probably for a 750 square foot area is maybe a little tight. It's a 6-foot bar.
Staff used 2 as the multiplier.
But they're talking about patrons for 6 people. So I'm thinking 25 is not an unrealistic number. But I think a number so that we have an idea and have something more concrete rather than a moving number.
Yeah, I agree that we need to have a limit number if this is going to be approved.
Personally, I wouldn't want to do more than 20 because I think when you start going to 25 or 30, it does start becoming a bar rather than a tasting room. My original idea was 15, and I thought, that sounds a little light. So 20 was my kind of cutoff point. If we went to 20, I would certainly back that motion.
Also, I'd like to note that the hours going to 10, I'd like to limit those to 9:30 because it does take time to get the people that are there if they are visiting. So that would be another issue that I would propose. And also the weekend, I think the hours are a little bit late for that area of zoning as well.
waiting for them to look at it. Is it okay to?
Yes, go ahead.
So I think there's been a lot of discussion and some ideas. Regardless, at what point do we hear from the applicant if any of our comments work with their business model?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe since you're talking about adjusting, conditions that would affect the operation, I believe it's okay to reopen the hearing specifically to ask the applicant to respond to the conditions that the commission is talking about.
That is correct. You can reopen the hearings for that limited purpose.
Okay, so I'd like to reopen the hearing for the limited purpose to address the questions of the commission.
Can you repeat those conditions?
Yes. Commissioner Dickerson?
Sure.
All right, Mr.
I'll go
Andrade.
ahead. In condition number 3 regarding patrons and seating, that was tied to parking, and at least this commissioner is concerned that that might be too vague in the sense of trying to enforce the conditions. So my proposal was going to be 25 people at any one time. In addition to which, I would ask that you consider requiring notice to the property owners if you were seeking a temporary use permit, and then also striking from the building division provisions 21 and 22, which allow for outside seating. So I wouldn't agree to allow for any outside seating. But those would be the 3 conditions that I would consider.
We can agree to those. That seems fair to us.
I'm sorry?
We could agree to those. That seems fair to us.
Would you be willing to go down to 20 instead of 25 with the thought that in a year, if everything is hunky-dory, then you can come back to us and we can discuss raising that at that time?
We can, just to start out, but is this a formal process that we'd have to go through? I mean, can you make that a condition? If there's no issues, we can go. I mean, is that something that we can do? I'd hate to come back to you guys again if our
It does get expensive. Yeah.
Who's going to take that?
The Planning Commission has the ability on all the topics you've raised to lay out a condition that we can craft a condition that will work for anything that's been proposed. If you want to make it so that it could be increased after a year, and if there has been no complaints that it can be administrative, you can do that. I think we can also commit that if the only purpose of the review in 1 year is to talk about the number, that's something that we wouldn't treat that as a formal application. We would waive a fee for that.
So it could still come back to us, but we'll waive the fees on that. Okay.
Yeah, we'd be completely acceptable with that because, I mean, we don't see problems at all. Breweries and other businesses coexist in other industrial areas, so yeah, that would be acceptable to us.
Could we allow, just a question I have, do we allow in this modifying number 3 a provision that allows for 20 for a year, and then then they may raise it to 25, and the decision would be made not by the Planning Commission, but by Community Development Director, who makes those kinds of decisions all the time anyway, should there not be any complaints about the operation of the business?
Yes, the plan. We can craft a condition to address any of the parameters that's been talked about. I could say from the staff perspective, if there are complaints about the use, we would always err on bringing it back to the commission. But if there are no complaints and the conditions worded that way, it can be done that way as well. And I just do want to note that we would want to keep language in condition 3 that notes without shared parking agreements, they would be limited to 14. Because that's the argument that they have 7 spaces now. They can only have 14, but if they get shared parking, they could go up to whatever the number is decided upon.
Can we go back to the correspondence received from Stevens and Stevens LLP with regard to the parking agreements, and then I think there was some conversation about the applicant being willing to put some timeframes in those agreements. Does the staff have an opinion on that?
Yes, we do on that. Our preference is to avoid all the formality of legalized documents in this case. We don't want the neighbor who is agreeing to allow some parking on their property to be locked in to a period of time. If they change their mind for whatever reason, we want them to be able to do that. The burden is then on the applicant that if they lose that, they have to either find more shared parking or they have to adjust their numbers. Because from staff's viewpoint, putting the term on it is actually, it's no problem for the applicant. They would love that. But it's a burden then on the business that is making the agreement.
And then yet any change, according to the conditions, needs to be reported to city staff.
Yes, yeah.
And are we good as far as if Mr. Sims finds that somehow they're being impacted by this, that they're going to be able to go to you and say, I've got this problem, and is there some, or who would deal with that? Code compliance, or at this point, do you just have to wait it out for the year and collect the complaints and then see what you got at the end of the process?
The intent is that if there are any problems with any of these conditions, we would want any of the property owners or businesses or employees in the area to contact planning staff. We do not intend to wait until the first year and collect. If it's an issue, we plan to let the applicant know and say, if this isn't addressed, or if we hear another complaint about this, as the condition says, and it's actually in the ordinance, we can do it any time, but we do rarely do it. We may bring it back to the planning commission and tighten up on some of the conditions if things are happening. So the intent is to be as responsive as possible, and even as we noted in the staff report, this is somewhat of a burden to have to watch out for this, but we do believe there is, we want to give the business the chance to operate and succeed. If they don't meet these, we do intend to aggressively protect the rights of the neighboring properties and bring it back to commission.
Thank you.
And there were 3 issues that were in brought up by the letter, which was the non-signed agreements. So those are required, as we have stated in the condition, to be signed. I would expect that at least a term of 6 months be achieved, because without a term, it does make it very gray and loose area. And if it is successful and there are no issues, we'd want to know that at least they have parking for so long so that they're not impacting. Because if this is and I expect it to be a very nice brewery, people will park in other people's parking areas and other businesses. That's common. So I would expect to see at least a 6-month term on those, because we do need to enforce the parking policy also in that area. And mainly it's just, I think there will be a burden with parking, and then the hours of operation I think also need to be limited. Just like with wine tasting, they close at 5 p.m. for a reason. You need to cut people off when they're having too much fun and nerding out on beer. I think that we need to cut back those hours as well. And I believe 9:30 is a good time during the week, and on the weekends as well. 9 p.m. is probably a good time.
I'm not going to support that.
Because of the time?
Right. And no, I think the other modifications we've done, I think we've made it very difficult for this business to come into Santa Maria. We've restricted a lot of its opportunity to expand. And if we start tinkering and micromanaging with the hours, I think 10 o'clock's fine, 5 to 10, that's what the application said. We've looked at that. So I think we start getting into running this gentleman's business, and I don't think we should do that.
I think I agree with Commissioner Andrade on this particular, and the main reason is if it were in a different place, I would probably side with Ms. Hernandez. But the fact that it's in a commercial zone, I mean, cripes, there are going to be very few people there at 9 or 9:30. It's not like they're going to be disturbing a lot of people, I'm hoping. So it's kind of splitting hairs to go between 9, 9:30, or 10, that extra hour. But it probably for people who are doing tasting, they would like a little bit more leeway to be a little bit later. I wouldn't want it to go to 11, 10:30, 11, but 10 is fine.
Well, it seems that the employees that work across the street do work late hours, and it is a 24/7 operation, and that's where that is coming from. Additional comments?
I'm going to
Staff
make
had
a
anything?
motion. I'm going to make a motion.
Commissioner Hernandez, Commissioner Andrade, are you going to withdraw the motion that you have or modify it? There's an existing motion that hasn't been seconded.
Right. No, I'm not going to modify it. I don't want to withdraw my motion. That's my motion.
Your motion stays at 25?
That's what I was going to ask. The number was...
I'm sorry. With regard to it should be 20, and then within a year, raise to 25, assuming all the parking requirements and conditions are met. And the motion would also include the number 9, require a notification to the property owners, and 21 and 22 be stricken. And then my view is that it should go before the community development director to decide whether or not there have been any complaints and whether or not to allow for the 25, as opposed to coming to the planning commission.
And staff had asked on number 3 that there be wording for the 7, that ties the 7 spaces to the 14, that they have to have 7 spaces to have the minimum 14.
Based on the motion proposed, for number 3, we would keep the language that talks about how they have a certain number of spaces now, and that ties to a certain number of patrons, and then it could go up to the number made in the motion if they have shared parking.
Yes. If they don't, then it's 14. Then it's 14. I would leave that language in there.
There was another suggestion about having a minimum length of term on the parking agreements. Just want to know if there's consensus on that, or if the maker of the motion wants that in the motion or not.
I think that we're interfering with the contractual relations between the two parties. He doesn't have an agreement that then they are not allowed to increase it to 20 or to 25. They're stuck at 14. So that's something that they have to work out. And it seems to me that if at any time that changes, then the numbers go down to the 14. So I think there's a trigger mechanism already in place. So I don't think it's necessary. That would be my motion.
So that's the motion as modified?
Yes.
I would second that motion.
Can we just repeat the motion one time?
We're all concerned.
Okay, so I would move that we approve the plan development permit, the conditional use permit rather, with a limit, with a modification on item number 3, whereby after a year, the maximum number of patrons that could be there at any one time would be 20, which would be raised to 25 after a year, should there not be any complaints during that 1-year period. Subject also to the requirement that they have in place appropriate parking agreements. In addition to which, that'd be number 3, in addition to which number 9 would include a provision where should they request a temporary use permit to go through that process, that the city's got to notify the property owners about that application. And then thirdly, striking any reference to the outdoor patio seating, which is set forth in 21 and 22. And And that would be my motion.
I have one question about 9 and the notice there. So all they have to do is notify the adjoining property owners. There's no approval, there's nothing. They're just telling them, hey, we're going to do it regardless of whether you like it or not.
No, I just think you have to give them notice. They still have to go through the process, and the city's got to decide whether or not to approve it or not, so.
Okay, all right.
That would be my motion.
And all decisions are appealable.
As I said, I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. Motion does not carry.
Motion failed.
Motion fails.
I'll make a motion that we tighten up. I'm still concerned about the parking agreement language and how that's actually going to turn out. I still have some questions. So if I made a motion to continue this, when would be the next date we could?
If a motion was made to continue, if I'm trying to read ahead, if the intent is just to get the parking agreements a little more solid, then that's something that we think can come back on April 20th.
Yes. I'd also like to, and I don't know how to do this, so maybe you can help me, but I'd like to see if, with the information that's been discussed tonight, if the 9 people on the, that have expressed concerns, if there's any, I'd like to see if that's changed.
So to confirm that the signees of the petition are still opposed after learning about all the conditions?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Pratt, can I ask a quick question? If the 6-month time period were put back on the parking, I mean, would that be?
No.
No, it's just,
No,
there's more to it
It's
than
not
that.
the
Okay.
term. Actually, I support where that stands with the staff, but I would like to see, I don't have any assurance that a person driving up is going to know where the correct parking is if the CCNR does not allow for that. And I think parking is an issue if we don't have that nailed down.
Peter?
I was informed that the association is fully supportive of signage. Now, exactly how it will be done, whether it's a sign or a stencil or something, it isn't known, but the association board is saying that signage of some kind is going to be allowed.
Okay. Well, so that may satisfy one of my concerns. That's very helpful. Thank you for that information. I still heard 2 different things tonight about the letters we received, and I'm uncomfortable. I think that's a significant enough percentage of people responding that I would like, if we can get it, I'd like the time, a little bit more time, depending on what you tell me. I don't want to hold the project up for an inordinate amount of time. But that would certainly help me. I'm struggling to match these things.
So getting feedback from the people who signed the petition about whether or not where their position is after hearing about the details and the conditions.
Maybe that's not possible. If you'll tell me that, that's fine.
I mean, no, we actually have feedback from a good number. Would you say half of them?
Yeah.
We had talked to about half of them, the ones we were able to get a hold of, and how many do you think? Go for it. Go ahead.
At least 3 individuals that I talked to just in the last 2 weeks had not known about the hours being 5 and beyond, and seem to be reconsidering, but I can't say until we further reach out to those individuals if they've changed their mind. But I can say at least 3 had some doubts on whether they were still opposed to the project. And those are personal phone calls that I made because I wanted to better understand where they were at in regards to the project.
Okay.
So you'd like to make a motion?
When could this project return?
So with the If the continuance is just to check up on that information, it can come back on the 20th. I would just note that the 20th is a packed agenda, but it can be put on that agenda. It would just add probably 15 minutes to half an hour to that agenda.
Okay, I'll make that motion that we continue this till the 20th of April. If I assume that date, we'll check that out with the applicants, make sure if they want to be here, they can attend that date. Okay. And that gives staff enough time to kind of settle up on the issue of the folks that have expressed concern.
Okay, can we get a second? Can we get a second to the motion? No second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Aye. I'm opposing the motion to continue.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. With that was the last item on the agenda. So we're going to move on to the report of city council actions.
Unfortunately, I don't have any information. I know the council did have a meeting last night. I was not able to follow up on anything that they did. I apologize.
Thank you. And any oral reports from the planning commission or staff? No? Okay, with that, I will adjourn.
One real quick thing. On the 8th, if it's not raining, is that how this is working out?
Yeah.
It's rain or shine?
No. Yeah. Thank you very much.
How's that working out?
So this Friday at 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock, we are having the inaugural downtown event, Downtown Fridays. We're getting lots of positive feedback. The expectation is there will be about 60 or 70 booths, lots of food, music, and such. There is the possibility that if it does rain, which it is supposed to rain a little bit on Friday, although it says light, that it could get canceled, but that will be a daytime decision.
That'd be made the same day, of the day by a certain time?
It'll be at 2 o'clock that the call will be made. But we're crossing our fingers. It's going to be in the parking lot of Town Center West between the church and Fallas. Highly encourage you to come in and participate. We're very excited about it, and if successful and if this catches on, it could be really good for the community.
Great, thank you. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:20. Thank you.
All right.
You get to come back for the 20th? Sure.